Hey, what up anyone who's watching? This is View with Ice, the channel with terrible narration but incredible recommendations for TV shows and anime, and in this video I will be recommending a few of the best new shows to premiere in January of 2023. Alright, I'm gonna start this list off with that 90s show. This right here was kind of a surprise to me because I didn't even know that there was a spin-off in the works, and when I found out about it, I was immediately skeptical. That 70s show was an absolute classic, and the majority of the time, when there is a spin-off or a reboot of a show, it most likely turns out to be terrible, but that isn't the case with this Netflix original. The show is of course in no way on the level of the original, but it was a decent enough show. It had some newer elements added to it, but it still had the essence of its predecessor. I know a lot of over-the-top hardcore fans will most likely not like it, but this is easily one of my favorite shows so far this year. The only problem I had with it was that it was too short. I really wouldn't mind if this show gets renewed for a few more seasons. Coming in next is Lockwood and Co. The story follows Lucy, Anthony, and George. They are essentially a supernatural detective agency with the mission of taking down ghosts and the supernatural. This is also easily my second favorite show to come out of January. Lockwood and Co kind of reminds me of Supernatural, and if you can remind me of Supernatural in any way, it is a win for me. The show has not been renewed or cancelled, but I'm gonna try and be very positive for a second season because this was a solid supernatural teen drama and it is definitely deserving of being renewed. Next up we have Extraordinary, a show that takes a little different approach to the typical superhero or superpowered story, and follows Jen, a young woman who lives in a world where everyone has superpowers. There are only a small percentage of people who don't have powers, and our Jen falls into that percentage. The show explores Jen's situation with being powerless and also takes a look at her relationships and struggles as a 20-something woman. The show is just a straight up comedy that follows a group of friends in their 20s. It has the classic UK humor with heavy sarcasm followed up with awkward situations, and it is also the first show that I have watched in a superpower type environment that has an Irish female lead. The show kind of reminds me of a short-lived show called Powerless, a show which I loved, but unlike Powerless, Extraordinary has already been renewed for a second season. And the show was renewed even before the premiere, so if they were so confident to renew a show that hasn't been released yet, it should definitely pique your interest. Next up we have Poker Face, easily the best show that I've ever watched from the Peacock Network. The show follows Charlie Cale, a casino worker who is on the run from a former employer after she uncovers a mysterious death involving the casino. Charlie has a natural born talent for being able to know when other people are lying, and this talent is what has gotten her into trouble. Each episode follows Charlie in a different town in a different job without constantly being on the run for her life, but at the same time she uncovers a lot of lies and mysteries on her travels. I would almost call Charlie a traveling detective because with each episode she is put in different situations in a different town where she uncovers a homicide in some way, shape or form. I feel almost anything that features Natasha Lyonne is a must-watch show these days. The woman is just incredible and I can never get tired of hearing her voice. And other people must think the same thing because Poker Face has already been renewed for a second season. I'm gonna finish this list off with The Last of Us. The show is a live-action adaptation of the best game that I've ever played in my life, and that includes The Last of Us 2, which I actually had the most fun playing, but never mind that. Live-action versions of books, anime and games are terrible the majority of the time, but HBO went in its bag with this one to bring us easily one of the greatest, if not the greatest live adaptation of a video game. The Last of Us is a post-apocalyptic story that takes place after the world has been taken over by a widespread fungal infection that turns humans into zombie-like monsters. The story takes place 20 years after the initial outbreak and follows Joel and Ellie. Joel is a smuggler who is tasked to take Ellie to a certain facility, as Ellie is the only person who is immune to this fungal infection and looks at her as a cure for this pandemic that took over the world. One thing that I can tell you now is that gamers are some of the worst people to try to impress with a live action show or movie, but this HBO original is something of a different breed. I have finished both games and I know exactly what will happen in the story, but Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey's portrayal of these characters are so great that I tear up again on certain portions of the story purely because of their performance. And of course, for obvious reasons, the show has already been renewed for a second season. It had one of the biggest openers in HBO with about 4.7 people watching the show on its opening day.